Johnny Cash performed his first #1 hit, I Walk the Line, on his network TV show. It's just one of his more than a dozen chart-topping songs. Cash died in 2003, but newly discovered poetry from the legendary musician was used to create a new album that's out today. Some popular artists helped Cash's songs find a voice. Anthony Mason visited Cash's son outside Nashville, Tennessee, to hear the collaborations. Anthony, you lucky dog.
I know it's hard work, but somebody's got to do it. We met John Carter Cash, who's also a producer of this album, at the Tennessee cabin his father converted into a studio, which is where most of the artists also came to record this very special tribute.
He built the Cash cabin here just as a place to rest and relax.
Johnny Cash's cabin is nestled at the back of the family property in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
So this was kind of a refuge for your family and your dad.
My father called this property Cedar Hill Refuge.
In his last years, Johnny Cash built a studio inside. And it's here that John Carter Cash has put some of his father's poems to music, with help from artists like Brad Paisley and Casey Musgraves and her husband Rustin Kelly, and Johnny's daughter Roseanne Cash.
What made you want to put his poetry to music?
Oh, the words called out on the page, they just begged out really to me to be heard.
Johnny Cash wrote constantly. Letters, lyrics, poetry. The family found hundreds of pages after his death.
I'm struck by the fact that he kept all this.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a pack rat, my father was. But you know, I mean, words meant the world to my dad. I mean, if you look at 200 pieces by any artist that are cast aside, you're going to find some gems within those, and that's what these are.
After publishing Forever Words, the unknown poems, in 2016.
Can you give us a sample?
Certainly.
Cash began looking for musical collaborators.
How did you feel to be asked?
Oh, I was thrilled to be asked. I was hoping I'd be asked.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard about the project, and I was like, Daddy is a sailor.
Country artist Alison Krauss, who's won 27 Grammys, worked with songwriter Robert Lee Castleman to finish Cash's The Captain's Daughter.
It's like, I don't want to say holy ground, but it is.
Yeah.
Like you're like, you really want to do it, but you really don't because you're afraid.
There's a responsibility that comes with it.
Oh, a huge one.
Yeah.
And the biggest one is to be honorable.
Cash also reached out to Chris Cornell before his tragic death last May.
He told me then, you know, that Dad was one of his greatest influences.
I'm gonna break my rusty cage and run.
Johnny had recorded Cornell's song Rusty Cage in 1996.
You never really knew my mind.
The Soundgarden frontman picked Cash's You Never Knew My Mind.
My father wrote You Never Knew My Mind in 1967 when he was going through a breakup with his first wife, Vivian. And Chris also connected intimately with his own experience to finish the song that my father had started.
It would be one of Cornell's last recordings.
I never really knew your mind.
The songs span Johnny Cash's life, from his teenage years to just before his death in 2003, when he was mourning the recent loss of his wife, June.
My father was persistent, man.
Yeah.
He, you know, people say, did your dad die of a broken heart? I know he died with one, but I don't think it killed him. Mm-hmm. I think he'd still be making music with us today, you know, if his body hadn't given out.
You tell me that I must perish, like the flowers that I cherish.
The song Forever comes from one of the last poems Johnny Cash wrote, performed by his old friends Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson.
But the trees that I planted still are young. The songs I sang will still be sung.
Some really powerful stuff on this record, including there's also songs by Elvis Costello, Jewel, John Mellencamp. You can imagine what it must be like as an artist to be presented with a Johnny Cash lyric.
Yeah.
I love
Don't mess it up, buddy.
reaction.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, you want to do it, but you're terrified. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you have to honor it up.
Yeah.
I want to hear it all. That's nice. It was beautiful, Anthony.
Love that leather jacket.
It gets around.
Anthony. And you can hear more of CBS This Morning on our podcast on iTunes and Apple's podcast app. Up next, we'll look at all that mattered this week. You're watching CBS This Morning.